From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Nick Oresco. This week is National Fire Prevention Week, commemorating 100 years of bringing fire safety initiatives to the public. This week on 22 News in Focus, we'll be talking about fire prevention and safety programs right here in Massachusetts. In our state, the Department of Fire Services provides training, education, prevention, investigation, and emergency response services, not only for fires, but for hazardous materials and other public safety situations. Joining me today is State Fire Marshal Peter Ostrowski. Thank you for being on the program today, Peter.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's get some background on the Department of Fire Services and fire issues all across the state. And I begin with this question. What does your office respond to? Do they respond to all fire incidents?
The Department of Fire Services is a support agency for local fire services. So local fire departments respond to all local emergencies, and we provide specialized resources to support those local firefighters.
How do you partner with the state police and local fire and police departments for your investigations?
The Fire and Explosive Investigation section of the state police is assigned to the Office of the State Fire Marshal. So at our headquarters in Stowe, we house a detachment of state police who are specially trained and respond to fire incidents and explosive incidents. So when you look at it, the fire investigators and the bomb squad work out of our office and work alongside of local departments in support of those investigations and responses.
Right, so you guys have a lot of teams. What type of forensics and other training is required for your inspections?
All of our personnel are specially trained in fire investigation and or explosive ordnance. And so they have specialized training and specialized tools to respond to those types of incidents. In addition, they come with resources such as explosive and accelerant canine to complement the other tools that they have at their disposal to bring those types of incidents to a safe closure. Our hazardous materials responders also have specialized training to deal with hazardous materials response incidents.
You also work with local fire departments. What type of training and support services does your department provide there?
Through our Massachusetts Firefighting Academy, we deliver training for fire service personnel from the start of their career as recruit firefighters on to chief fire officer and everything in between. So everything from those basic courses on firefighting for somebody who might just be starting their career, to company officer training, not only tactics and strategies for the fire service, but also personnel management and other aspects of that job. And again, to senior fire officer personnel who are honing their skills and leading departments in some of the more administrative and technical responsibilities. As you know, there's changes all the time in the fire service, in the world around us, and the fire service has to react. So our team at the Fire Academy has to provide that appropriate training at the right time as these things come to bear on the responses for local fire departments.
And we just saw some video there. Obviously, a lot of training gets involved in that. What are the most common causes of structure fires?
Statistics show us that the most common cause of fires in Massachusetts over the last several years has been cooking. So we see a lot of cooking fires that extend and cause structural fires. Importantly too, though, is the fact that most fatal fires are not from cooking, they're from improper disposal of smoking materials. And the second leading cause of fatal fires is electrical in nature.
I want to talk numbers now. Roughly, a rough estimate at least, how many structure fires were reported in Massachusetts in 2021?
In 2021, we had 16,000 structure fires, or 16,000 fires reported across the Commonwealth. That's down about 1,000 from the prior year. And we've seen that trend line continuing down on a downward trend for fires overall.
And how many deaths were associated with fires during that time?
In 2021, sadly, we lost 46 members of our communities, 44 in the year prior. We've seen a steady decline in fatalities in fires in Massachusetts from the early 70s, when we had over 185 year over year. And so we're down to about a quarter of that, still too many.
Now, your office reported that for the first time on record, no children died in fires in Massachusetts in 2020 or 2021 for that matter. Also in 21, no firefighters died in fire-related incidents. That is some very good news. What do you attribute that to?
Those are great numbers. I attribute the child fire death reduction to the great work that life safety educators doing in communities every day. As I mentioned, the Department of Fire Services is a support agency. We're out there working with cities and towns, giving them resources. So specially trained firefighters are working in schools every day across the Commonwealth, and we're very fortunate, and that's had a significant impact on the child fire deaths. As to firefighter deaths, I think that is symbolic of the great work that communities have made in investments in fire departments, advanced fire training that firefighters are now taking advantage of, as well as equipment advances. We have better protection and better equipment available for fire service personnel. I think too that firefighters are much more conscious of their health and they're monitoring their own personal health and status, and that's definitely an advantage as they work in a very, very difficult situation on the fire ground.
Yeah, it's definitely good to see those numbers going down. All right, after the break, we'll get some fire prevention advice from the State Fire Marshal. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about fire safety as part of Fire Prevention Week with State Fire Marshal Peter Ostrowski. We report on fires caused by overloaded electrical outlets, improper disposal of smoking materials, food on the stove, dryer fires, and fires caused by outdoor cooking and fire pits. The list goes on. Now, if you were to go through every room in your house, including the basement, attic, and the garage, what would a fire prevention checklist look like?
Well, Nick, I think the top item on that list would be smoke and carbon monoxide detection and alarms on each level of the home. You want to make sure that that first line of defense is in place and operational. If they're battery operated, you want to make sure that they have fresh batteries if they're replaceable, that they're regularly tested, and that that first line of defense is in place and ready to go. In addition to that, you need to make sure that you have an escape plan. We should make sure that you have the ability to get out of each room through two ways. That may include a window, but also make sure that the whole family has practiced that, both daytime and nighttime tests, to make sure that you're ready to go. You should look around at outlets and extension cords. As you mentioned, electrical is a significant cause of fires, and making sure that those are not overloaded or worn out. You should never have something over, like a throw rug or anything, over an extension cord. And actually, whenever possible, an appliance should be plugged directly into the wall, so that you're not using an extension cord, because that's the best way to operate electrical devices. You want to make sure that no combustibles are near sources of fire. So making sure that if a space heater, for instance, is in use, you keep it away from curtains or draperies or blankets. In addition, if you are using candles, we recommend highly that battery-operated candles are the best and safest, and they give you that same ambiance, but they're not as dangerous as the open flame that regular candles may have, and you need to make sure that that's attended. And lastly, when you're cooking, making sure that you stand by your pan, make sure that you stay with the cooking, and also make sure there's an area of safety, 3 foot around the cooking area for little ones, to make sure that you're not going to have scald burns or they're not going to get injured around cooking materials and open flames like a fireplace.
A long checklist, but obviously something that is definitely necessary. What types of public outreach is your department doing as part of Fire Prevention Week?
We're doing a lot of public outreach through our social media channels. In addition, we're focusing on supporting local fire departments. Local fire departments will be out in the public, they'll be in schools, they'll be doing a whole variety of engagements with the public to emphasize fire prevention this week, this month, to make sure that those tips and tricks are really in people's hands, and we're really out there supporting them, along with our partners with the National Fire Protection Association.
And if you can give some information now on the Student Awareness of Fire Education, or SAFE program, details on what that is.
Our SAFE program is an opportunity to have specially trained firefighters in the communities going into the schools and into the public setting to really enhance the knowledge and understanding of fire safety. The Department of Fire Services has been well supported by the legislature and the administration to provide grants to allow that training to take place, as well as to enable departments to get people in the schools. And when you look at the success of that, since its inception in 1995, the SAFE program has really had a significant impact with a reduction, significantly reduction of over 70% of child fire deaths in Massachusetts. We've been able to have 2 years, 2020 and 2021, with no child fire deaths, which is a tribute to the great work of those firefighters who are working in their communities to educate students.
And again, some great news there. Now, not only schools, but businesses as well are required to conduct periodic fire alarm tests and fire drills, clearly mark exits and post fire escape routes. Should families who live in houses and apartments also create a practice of home escape plan, those plans, and what should be included in those plans?
Every home needs a fire escape plan. The fire won't wait. You have to plan your escape. And that is regardless of what type of home that you live in. You need to make sure that two ways out. And in some cases that may be a window being the second way out of a room, but you should have 2 ways out of each room. You should make sure that you know the plan of how you're going to exit, including that alternate, and you should know where you're going to gather away from the building, as far away from the house as practicable once you do get outside. Once you have your plan assembled and together, you need to make sure the whole family knows it. That's children, adults, seniors, people with disabilities, and you really need to practice it to make sure that everybody knows what that plan is and how you're going to put it in operation in the case of an emergency. Everybody needs to know that when you get outside, you stay outside and call 911 and let the fire department respond and do what they do best. And then we need to make sure that you verify that those smoke and carbon monoxide alarms are in place because that is your first line of defense to make you aware.
Last question in this segment. You briefly talked about smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. They are required by law, yet many investigations after a fire find that there weren't any alarms installed or they weren't working properly. What is your advice on fire and CO alarms?
Well, again, you need to make sure that they're in place and operating. If you don't have some, you need to get some right away. If you have some that are giving you problems, they may need to be relocated to a more appropriate place so they don't get tripped by cooking smoke or steam from the shower. If you don't have them, if you're a homeowner, you can go to a local hardware store or one of the retail outlets. You can also find information on our website about the location for fire alarms and carbon monoxide alarms to be installed. You want to make sure that those alarms are name brand and have a national testing laboratory mark like UL or ETL on them to make sure that they're appropriate for the installation that you're going to use them for.
And they are definitely life-saving devices. All right, fire risks increase during the winter months. We'll have that conversation when we come back. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. We're talking with State Fire Marshal Peter Ostrowski to kick off Fire Prevention Week, which runs from October 9th through the 15th. Now, according to the National Fire Protection Association, home fires occur more in the winter than in any other season, and heating equipment is involved in 1 of every 6 reported home fires and 1 in every 5 home fire deaths. Let's discuss some fire prevention tactics in our homes as we prepare to spend more time indoors and get ready for the winter holidays. Some heating people, home heating, I should say. People heat their homes with everything from furnaces to wood and gas burning stoves to space heaters. Peter, how important is it to get your chimney, fireplace, and furnace cleaned and inspected? And how often should people be doing this?
Nick, now's the time to have your equipment serviced and maintained. As we see so many of these devices that do cause problems, typically what we see is that they haven't been properly maintained. So an annual service at least should take place. That includes cleaning of chimneys, servicing of central heating units, and making sure that combustibles are away. You know, this time of year, it's not unusual for us to hear about those service events taking place and finding birds' nests in chimneys or other things that may be impacting home heating equipment. So make sure that it's serviced on an annual basis. Now's a great time as we enter into the heating season when those devices are going to be really challenged.
What are some signs that you may have a fire in your chimney? What are things to look out for?
It's not unusual for us to receive reports of a chimney fire that sounds like a train. You can hear a rumbling noise in the home. In addition, you may see sparks coming out of the top of the chimney. So you usually get some indications that you have some sort of incident going on like that. Again, it's imperative that once you become concerned or aware of that, you should call 911, have the fire department respond, and make sure that it's safe to continue with the operation of that device.
Space heaters are very popular. What advice do you have for using something like a space heater to prevent a fire from sparking?
Space heaters need to be attended first and foremost. You should never turn it on and leave it unattended. And whether that's leaving the room or going to sleep, it should not be with a space heater running. In addition, you need to make sure that it has an area around it that's not cluttered and doesn't have combustible materials. You want to keep those drapes or bedding far away from the space heater. And when at all possible, you want to make sure that it's plugged directly into the wall. Don't use an extension cord because they draw a lot of electricity, and that can oftentimes overrun the capability of that extension cord.
Let's talk about the holidays. Christmas trees and both indoor and outdoor lighting displays will be going up soon. What are some prevention tips when planning for holiday decorations, such as Christmas tree care and those lights?
Well, certainly everybody enjoys the holidays and decorating, to reflect that. You want to make sure that your exit ways and exit paths remain open and keep those available in case you do have to evacuate the space. You don't want those decorations impeding your ability to escape and implement that escape plan. In addition, if you do use a live tree, you want to make sure that you keep it watered and that you only keep it in the home as short a period of time as possible, because again, that does contribute to the potential for a fire. Keeping ignition sources away from live trees or combustible decorations is another important aspect. Reduced or no use of candles is a great suggestion. Again, I go back to those battery-operated candles, and I think it's important always to look at electrical safety. Don't overload circuits. Don't put too many extension cords in operation to supply power to your Christmas decorations.
And very good advice there. Now, sometimes we lose power during storms and people turn to alternatives to heat and power their homes and businesses. What rules should people follow when using a portable generator?
Well, going back to what we said earlier, and that is making sure that you have smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Sadly, we see too many injuries and deaths as the result of carbon monoxide, and oftentimes in a power outage, that's because a generator is inside the building or too close to an opening that allows the exhaust fumes to overcome the occupants. The use of a generator often is the result, of power loss. So you need to have oftentimes gasoline's involved. You want to make sure that you don't gas up a hot engine and that you keep gasoline containers away at a safe location away from that generator when it's in operation. And you want to make sure that it's appropriately connected to the home. Use a power switch that's appropriate for the installation so that you have safe electrical practices as you operate that device.
And with snow and ice storms on the horizon, that is some great advice and information for people looking to do just that. All right, I'll have some final words after the break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You've been watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking with State Fire Marshal Peter Ostrowski about fire safety to kick off Fire Prevention Week, which runs from October 9th through the 15th. Peter, thank you for being on the program and sharing your expertise on how to save lives and property from fire.
Thanks for the opportunity to join you. I just want to say that you can find more information on these and other fire safety tips on our website at mass.gov/DFS.
All right, great information there. And thank you for watching at home. If you missed any of it, you can watch it in full on our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, have a great day.
From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Nick Oresco. Fire Prevention Week is October 9th through the 15th. And this week on 22 News in Focus, we're looking at the services offered by the state and local fire departments. Local fire departments have faced budget cuts and staffing shortages, yet they are expected to respond not only to fires but other emergencies, including motor vehicle accidents and hazardous materials incidents. Joining me now is Captain Drew Pamonte from the City of Springfield Fire Department. Thank you, Drew, for being on the program today.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Of course. So Springfield has one of the oldest fire departments in the country and one of the largest in the state. Let's start out with some background on the department and some basic numbers and figures here. How many members are currently employed by the department?
Currently, we have 280 members.
And how many fire stations are in use right now?
Currently, we have 8 stations.
So obviously, as mentioned, a pretty big city. How many firefighting apparatuses are in use right now, and what are the different types that you guys use?
Currently, we have 8 engine companies in service, 4 ladder companies, 1 heavy rescue squad, 2 tactical units, and 2 command vehicles for the district chiefs.
Obviously need a lot of equipment for a big city. Now, does the department have EMS or paramedic services, and is it a requirement to become a Springfield firefighter?
It's not a requirement to become a Springfield firefighter in the application process. Currently, we provide a BLS services, which is basic life support service. We also can administer Narcan. We carry AEDs and other basic life support systems. We're required, after you go to drill school, to get certified as a first responder and basic life support.
Speaking of Narcan, when did you guys first carrying that, and when was it implemented?
Approximately 3 years ago, we started carrying it and implemented it. There was definitely a need for it around the city, and we were able to use heat mapping around the city to determine where the Narcan will be distributed the most and where it has been distributed. And it's been pretty successful up to date.
Now, what type of education or training is required to become a Springfield firefighter?
Currently, to apply for the position of firefighter, you need a high school diploma or its equivalency, a valid driver's license, and not be a convicted felon. Once you're accepted through the application process and hired as a firefighter, you attend the Department of Fire Services Firefighting Academy, which is a 10-week curriculum where you're trained in the basic principles of firefighting, firefighter safety, physical education, prevention, and basic firefighting practices and strategies and tactics.
Going off of that training, what are some things that people who are going to become a firefighter should take away from these trainings, maybe the most important that you would say?
The most important is basically taking care of yourself and, going to work and getting back to your family. Definitely keeping up with the dynamics of the fire service changes daily. There's always new training available, new equipment, and the more you can keep up with that, the better off you'll be to serve the community and safer as a firefighter. Right,
yeah, I mean, definitely a very dangerous job. Now, Springfield has a population of over 150,000 people in an area of 33 square miles. On average, how many fires does the department respond to in a year?
Annually, we respond to approximately 648 structure fires.
Now, is that a lot of fires for someone who is not familiar with the amount of fires that you guys respond to?
Yeah, due to the size of the city, the different demographics and the occupancies, we do have our share of fires around here.
Now, what are some of the most common types of fires that your crews see in the city of Springfield?
I'd say the most common types of fires are unattended cooking, careless disposal of smoking materials, electrical malfunctions, and human error also factors into it.
Obviously, the winter is on the way now, just a couple months away, really. What are some things that homeowners, apartment owners should keep in mind as the colder months approach?
Well, as heating season approaches, whether you live in an apartment block or a residential structure, once the heating equipment comes back online, there tends to be malfunctions, so it's important to do proper maintenance on the heating systems, whether it be an apartment building or a residential. You should have it inspected annually by a qualified heat service technician. Make sure everything's properly operated, there's no clutter around the heating units, and basically that you have operating smoke detectors in that area as well.
Would you guys say that you respond more in the winter months for fires, home fires, because of those issues as compared to warmer months, spring and summer?
I'd say, yeah, in the winter we get a lot of delayed ignition calls. Like I said, a lot of it comes back to maintenance on the systems. There won't be major fires, but there'll be a lot of minor fires that'll trigger the alarm systems, and we'll go investigate and then recognize the source and then reset the system, and then people have to go without heat for a little bit, but then once they get the maintenance in there and get the heat back online. But we do have an uptick on calls due to related malfunction in heat equipment.
And with winter coming as well, storms, ice storms are definitely possible. Definitely have to plan for something like that. What would you tell a homeowner, again, somebody who is also living in an apartment, what should they know to keep their place safe if power does go out for an extended period of time?
If the power does go out, if you are using an auxiliary means of power in a residential structure, whether it be a generator, always have safe ventilation. Make sure your smoke detectors are operating. You don't want to use anything that's running on a gasoline engine inside a house or an apartment block. You definitely don't want to secure power from another source via extension cords being plugged in to go long distances to try and power up appliances.
Captain, great information there. We'll continue this conversation right after the short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. I'm talking with Captain Drew Pamonte from the City of Springfield Fire Department as part of Fire Prevention Week. Now, being a firefighter is a dangerous occupation, but advances in firefighting technology have reduced casualties among firefighters and, of course, civilians as well. In the early days, though, of firefighting, there were bucket brigades and horse-drawn wagons and not much in the way of protective clothing. Luckily and thankfully, a lot of that has changed since those days. Captain, what does a modern fire truck look like right now? What kind of tools are on them, and how do they operate?
Like you said, Nick, we've gone from horse-drawn carriage wagons to now we're operating up to pretty sophisticated engine company trucks, ladder trucks. Right now, our engine companies are capable of carrying 750 gallons of water, 1,500 feet of hose. The ladder companies can operate at an elevation of 107 feet. The compartments are a lot bigger. We're able to carry more equipment. They operate basically with a diesel engine, and then we have the pumping principles are the same, as well as the hydraulic principles for the aerial operations. You still have to have a water source and a source to get it to the fire, which that's where the engine companies come in. And then the ladders, they're pretty stable now, as in the early days when you get on them, they'd roll and sway a lot. Now they're stable to work off of, which keeps the firefighters safe when they're doing ventilation operations. They also carry extrication equipment on the ladder trucks in our heavy rescue truck. They've gone from being hydraulic gasoline operated to electric hydraulic power to now they're operating with a cordless battery operated tools that are capable of producing pressure up to over 10,000 psi for crushing, tearing, prying, lifting, any type of extrication equipment that will be needed to perform those.
Yeah, they are some hefty machines. There are many buildings in the city of Springfield and, of course, surrounding towns with tall buildings. How hard is it to fight a fire in a building over 5 stories?
As with any building, whether it be a 2-story, 3-story, 5-story, or a 7-story high-rise, when you have to get the equipment and the manpower up to a floor elevation of 5 or even 7 or even 30 down to 10 Chestnut, you need the manpower to do it and the resources to get the equipment up there. It really taxes our manpower as far as fatigue goes, because after you get all the equipment up there, then the work starts of putting the fire out, which is pretty labor intensive. We have to get a control of the building when we get there. That starts with getting control of the lobby and the stairwell so the occupants can exit safely. We have to get all our extra Scott tank bottles up there, our water supply established. It takes 6 engine companies, 3 ladders, 2 district chiefs, 1 heavy rescue, and like I said, a lot of manpower just to really get up there and get the fire out. Most of the high-rise buildings by law are sprinklered, but there are other buildings that are exempt by law that are not sprinklered. And basically the message we put out on any of those when we're at the scene is to tell the tenants not to ignore the alarms when they go off. Because the longer you ignore, the longer it's going to take you to get out. You could lose both your means of egress at that point, depending on what the volume of fire is. The detection systems that are going in the building now they do go off earlier, and they're more sophisticated than they were in the 60s and 70s when all the regulations really started. So it's important for the tenants that they do not ignore the alarms when they go off, and they do have their evacuation plan and they do follow it, and make sure that they pass that message on to the other tenants.
Right, a lot more goes into this than maybe the average person may think. Now, some fires cannot be treated with just water. What is the protocol for determining what substance to use to fight a fire?
It all comes down to what's fueling the fire. There's 5 different classifications of fire. The Class A fires are ordinary combustibles, which would be paper, wood, vegetation. It usually can be extinguished with water. Class B fires are classified as flammable liquids, where we can use foam suppression that we have on the pumps that we use, or in some cases it might be better just to let the fuel burn itself out and self-extinguish. And then we have Class C fires, which are electrical fires. Your first priority with electrical fire is to de-energize the equipment, and then use the CO2-based extinguishing agent on those. Class Delta fire is a flammable metal, and we have powder agents that we apply to them that form a crust material over the metal that's burning. We also see a lot of car fires with magnesium, and like I said, sometimes those are fires that are better off to let the fire burn itself out till it consume all the fuel, and then it'll self-extinguish. And then we have Class K fires, which are kitchen fires, usually associated with commercial kitchens, which are usually protected by Ansel systems that'll extinguish a Class B fire that's considered Class K for flammable liquids.
We talked about how much fire trucks have changed over the years. Protective gear has also changed, from boots to flame-resistant fabrics and oxygen tanks. Explain the types of protective equipment firefighters use today.
Today, going back to the horse-drawn wagons, back in those days, the guys would have a helmet, a rubber coat, and rubber boots, if that, and then they'd go put the fire out. Fast forward to 2022 right now. Our firefighters are equipped with full turnout gear, which starts with leather boots, pants that you wear that are thermally protected with 3 layers. Then you have a coat system that also you wear, and then you have a Nomex hood that goes over your head, that goes over your face piece. We have a self-contained breathing apparatus, which gives us compressed air to breathe when we're in a hazardous environment, protecting us from the carcinogens and the off-gassing of the fires that is produced. Right now, we also have, on our Scott packs, we carry thermal imaging cameras, which allow our members to determine high levels of heat, low levels of heat, and they're able to see through a smoke environment where they can locate victims or locate the source of the fire, the seat of the fire, and be able to get the hose up there and put the fire out.
You mentioned all these items. I mean, this equipment must be heavy for these guys to get to a house fire. I mean, how heavy is this?
It could be upwards of 70 pounds. You know, that's when it's dry before it gets wet or covered in ice. And so it's definitely physically taxing to wear it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Now, as a large department, do you get called on to help other departments, and in what capacity?
We do have mutual aid agreements with the surrounding cities, and it's basically on what they need for resources. They'll call, and if we have them, we'll send them. It could be anywhere from a ladder truck, an engine company, or a technical rescue response where they just don't have the capabilities of the equipment to safely make the rescue.
All right, when we return, we'll learn about fire prevention efforts in the city and all across the region. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about firefighting with Captain Drew Pamonte from the City of Springfield Fire Department. This week is National Fire Prevention Week. Captain, let's go back to you now. What types of initiatives is the department offering as part of Fire Prevention Week?
We'll be using our social media platform to get our safety message out. We'll also be going to the different schools throughout the city, giving tours to the children and giving our safety message to them as well, and then getting them tours of the apparatus. We let them see the guys in their gear so they're not uncomfortable seeing them dressed up like that, because it can be a little intimidating for a young child to see a firefighter in full turnout gear. So we want them to be comfortable and not be afraid. And we try to make it fun for the kids when we're out there in the community talking. We're delivering a serious message, but we don't want to scare them. We want to make sure that it's fun and educational for them, and that it's not something that they have to be afraid of. It's something that they have to practice, and if they do practice, they will be safer in the long run. And October is a great month to start it, you know, because we can cover a lot of stuff, even though it's a Fire Prevention Week, but we're coming into winter. You know, we'll hit ice safety, fire safety, Christmas tree safety, and just basically a wide range of topics. And we'll try and get that message out as much as we can and as often as we can. And you know, the kids will be coming by the stations too for tours. You know, that's also a lot of fun. Each station's different, and the guys come up with different and unique ways to deliver the message. Like I said, we get the children in the apparatus, we get them flowing some water. They all love to see the jaws of life and the extrication equipment in use. And you know, we'll throw the aerial up and have the guys climb 100 feet up and let them see that they can do that safely, and that we're well prepared to deal with the situations that arise in firefighting, and that, again, to get our message out about planning your escape and having your meeting place, and you know, and share it with your friends and your other families. You know, I have a young child at home too, and if he has to go sleep over at somebody's house, one of my first messages or my questions is, well, where's their meeting place? And then if he tells me, then you can go. It's just, you make it fun and educational and a great experience for the kids to enjoy it. And then when they enjoy it, they're going to pass it along to other people, whether it be an adult, a grandparent, or another sibling. It's just, it's a great opportunity to educate the community and interact with all the different people around the city.
Yeah, do you let the kids also try on some of the heavy equipment too to see how it actually feels to carry all that stuff?
We do. You know, we do make sure that when they do that they're trying on clean gear and stuff, and that they don't have any risk of you know, getting contaminated or anything like that. And they really enjoy that part of it. And you know, we try and pass out as much coloring book literatures, you know, the plastic red hats that all the kids love. And our prevention division does a great job of making sure we got plenty of supplies to get out there, and they do a great job getting our message out. They had to get creative during COVID. We were able to offer messages through our social media platform. They created videos on YouTube. They did Zoom meetings. And basically, even though COVID shut everything down, our prevention division kept chugging along and figuring out ways to keep our message going instead of staying stagnant. And it worked out really well.
You have this specific week to teach people about what you do in the preventions. Do you offer year-round educational programming for the community as well?
We do. Any community organization, whether it be a school or a neighborhood council, boys club, or any of that stuff, they can contact our department at any time. And if we have the schedule available, we'll schedule them in and we'll go out and do a tour. And again, we'll take that opportunity year-round to deliver our message. We do it on when we go on calls every day. You know, we respond to 14,000 to 16,000 calls a year in the city of Springfield. It's just going into people's houses and for alarms sounding and stuff. It's a great way to check and show them, hey, we'll take 2 seconds and check your smoke detector. And you know, if they're not going off and we recognize that they should be going off, you know, we'll take that opportunity to educate them again on how not to disconnect them and not to take the batteries out and not to ignore them. And basically, we do it 365 days a year. We're trying to get our safety message out as much as we can.
The city has a large non-English speaking population. How do you connect with them about fire safety issues such as these?
Well, back in 2014, I believe, it was recognized that we were having some language barrier issues, and we were able to partner up with the local hospitals that were able to provide us with information on how to translate. You know, it's not just Hispanic speaking population, but we have Somali refugees, we have Russian refugees. We have a very diverse population in the city who basically never know who you're going to be talking to. And you know, if we do have a language barrier, usually we can overcome it with the systems that we have in place.
Schools and businesses are required to have smoke and CO detectors and regular testing and drills, fire extinguishers, exit signs, and other safety precautions. Unfortunately, homeowners can be lax when it comes to fire safety. How important is it for families to have and practice home escape plans, and what should be included?
You should practice your plan as much as you can. You know, what should be included on that is what first of all, when the smoke detectors go off, you know, what's going to be your initial reaction? Are you going to ignore it, or are you going to acknowledge it? And you know, if you're in your room or something, how you going to open the door? Are you going to open it with the back of your hand to check for heat? If you open the door and there's smoke in the hallway or anything, how are you going to overcome that? Are you going to stay low? The message is to stay low. If you can't get down the hallway, you need to have it shut your door and protect yourself and get to a window. You know, we also encourage it, you know, when you get out, to stay out. Don't worry about your pets. They're very resilient. They do manage to make their way out. Definitely knowing how the 911 system operates. You know, we have, sometimes we joke with the kids when we're giving the tours, you know, you ask them what the number to 911 is, you know, and they get a good laugh out of it. But it's definitely have your meeting place, have your escape routes planned. You should have more than one escape route, definitely to egress your property. And then have your common meeting places as central location as possible from the house where everybody can meet. And most importantly, don't ever go back in.
And quickly here, what is your advice on how many items should be plugged into one outlet?
If you're using heating appliances, coffee makers, toasters, stuff like that, it should be one appliance per outlet. You know, and if you're plugging in something into an outlet and your breaker keeps tripping, then that's a good indication that there's something going on in the system somewhere, whether it be a faulty outlet, heating appliance, or you have a problem down at your breaker panel. That's another thing not to ignore. You know, if you're going to use an extension cord, you know, extension cords are for temporary power. You should use an extension cord that's rated for the equipment you're powering up. And like I said, don't use them as a primary source of electricity. You definitely don't want them buried under a carpet or behind a bed or under a couch or anything.
Yeah, don't overload that outlet. All right, I'll have some final remarks when we return from our short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. I've been talking with Captain Drew Pamonte from the City of Springfield Fire Department about firefighting and fire prevention as part of our Fire Prevention Week, which begins today and runs through October 15th. Thank you, Captain, for being here today and providing that life-saving information.
Thanks for having me, Nick. On behalf of Commissioner Calvi and our Fire Prevention Division, I would just wish everybody a happy and safe holiday season and definitely an education-filled Fire Prevention Week, and practice the message, fire doesn't wait, plan your escape. Thank you.
All right, and thank you for watching at home. You can log on to our website for anything that you missed. From all of us here at 22 News, have a great day.